people. I'm super excited to come your way. And yes, it is the launch of the EYV podcast, that is Empowering Your Voice podcast, with me, Bright Upokubama Yuenchi Shandor, that is Bob Shandy for short. Yes, so this podcast focuses on entrepreneurship, business, mindset shifts, and also self development. So at this point, I'm sure you are wondering why the setup at the background. And yes, you've got certain frames and pictures at the background. And to help me explain this into details, I've got with me Sergio, who's going to help us understand why these frames are at the background. Hello, Sergio.
Hi, Shani.
Sergio, so can you take us through why we have these men at the background, the frames, and how they connect to that podcast?
Thank you very much. Shani. First of all, let me talk about Professor Pierre. He's a renowned Kenyan lawyer and a Pan-Africanist. He's also the director of the Kenyan Law Show. And Professor Lumumba has a reputation for his moving and motivational speeches that he gives across the globe. And he has delivered these speeches at various lectures and events. He's one of the powerful voices of the Sons of Africa currently. If you're looking for a Pan-Africanist that drives African progress and youth development, then you want to talk about Professor Lumumba. Let me tell you this. He has certain key principles as an individual that he always postulates, which sort of resonates with the show or our podcast, the EYV podcast. Let me tell you that when it comes to individualism and youth progress or youth growth, Professor Lumumba is there. He always delivers speeches that move the youth, bring out the creativity in the youth, always try to empower the youth to be brave in facing situations. If you're looking for a key Pan-Africanist, then you're talking about Professor Lumumba. Because let me tell you, he's one of the people who admire our very own Professor Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, should I say. He also admires Thomas Sankara. He also admires persons like Patrice Lumumba, who he was probably named after. And these are key revolutionaries of Africa. When you're looking for the people who have revolutionized Africa, these are key persons, and these are the people that he admires a lot. So most of the time when he's delivering his speeches, he mentions them in their speeches and quotes key phrases or words or sentences that they have said in their places. So if you're looking for somebody who is moving African towards some sort of unity, like these people wanted to, then you want to talk about Professor Lumumba. Let me also tell you that when it comes to entrepreneurship, not only politics alone, he is a man who is always advocating for the youth to be brave in their creativity, to put themselves out there, to push themselves to the limit, and always take up mantles or roles that would make sure that they bring out whatever is inherent within them and move Africa forward. I believe strongly that his key purpose is not for each individual alone to make it, but for us to collectively come together and then drive Africa forward. And so currently, he's one of the powerful voices we have on the continent of Africa, and we don't want to lose such a man now. For which reason that we have his frame right above me as a voice that is pushing this podcast forward.
That's quite exciting. And yes, there again we have right above me, that is Honorable Kennedy Dapon. He's a Ghanaian politician and he's a businessman. We all know in Ghana, Honorable Kennedy Dapon has been one man that when it comes to businesses, or a man that inspires the youth to take the future into their own hands, and even Africa at large. He's pioneered some of these things, and he talks passionately about how and why youth delve into some of these business ventures. And one of the things that he upholds much personally or about him is about honesty, discipline, and also hard work. I think in his recent political runs, like he was talking about some of these things that as a youth or anybody who dares to do well in life, and even in this entrepreneurial space, one of the key things that we can't eliminate is honesty. And as a people, it is one of the things that we need. It is a must. Like in everything that we do, in all endeavors, people need to be honest when we meet people in our day-to-day lives, and even in that space of entrepreneurship. That honesty bit needs to come in, and also about discipline. That you have to be disciplined in to be able to make it in life. And if you even about this business or business venture, there is that key element in there where is discipline, and it is one of the things that makes up of his ideologies as a person, and we can talk about some of the things that he's done as a politician. I think recently he's building this. When it's completed, will be the biggest steel factory, if not in West Africa, I think Africa at large. And even he currently holds the biggest school store in the whole of West Africa, when it's something that I think is big and worth mentioning. And such a man at the back of our background is to inspire us, and also it connects with our voice, because throughout his own life or throughout his political career and his entrepreneurial journey, he advocates for us to be able to take into our own hands that kind of future that we desire. He inspires us to create that path, and as a podcast that seeks to inspire, to also educate, to motivate, and also make people come to that self-mastery level, I don't think that we made any wrong choice as having him as one of the people to inspire us in this podcast journey. And yes, it's going to be exciting one year, Sedru.
No, not at all, Chandy. I wouldn't like to catch you, but a lot of us see Ken as just a politician. Okay, we have heard severally that he's a businessman, but we really don't know what he's into. Aside his political life, like you have just said, he's one mastermind when it comes to business and entrepreneurship and bringing up startups on your own and all that. So we shouldn't always be clouded by the fact that he's a politician. But if you take a closer look at his life and how he even started his entrepreneurial journey, you have a lot to pick from him as a businessman. And like you said, honesty and discipline. In fact, loud enough, we have observed how disciplined he as a person is. And it tells us a lot as youth that if you want to make any sort of progress, we should be following the key steps of some of these people in terms of entrepreneurship and bringing out our creativity.
Just to add up, one of the very things that he also upholds or upholds is patriotism. And I think for longer time now, it's one of the things that is missing within our our community, or in the Ghanaian community. We've lost that sense of patriotism, and he preaches that kind of virtue. And in this space and in our entrepreneurial space, or to be able to gain that kind of self-mastery and self-development, we need to be patriotic. It's one that drives that goal for the entire nation, even the African continent, and even those in the diaspora, the Africans in the diaspora. We need to be patriotic, because yes, if you are in the diaspora and you aren't patriotic enough, there wouldn't be that drive for you to even come down to your country to even help develop it.
Yeah. So, as a matter of fact, like you just said, I think that one of the key things that is common between Ken and Prof. Lumumba is the issue of patriotism. Recently, he delivered a speech that hinged on the fact that youth in Africa are leaving the continent. And he alludes that to the hardship on the continent. To him, he feels like a lot of good brains, like we're taught way back in social studies, they talk about brain drain. You see, a lot of good brains that the sons and daughters of Africa possess are leaving the continent because it looks like there's so much hardship here. In as much as there's hardship too, he mentions that there is a lot here that we ourselves can make use of and exploit in order to put Africa on the map as one of the greatest succeeding continents. So one key thing is patriotism. Love your country, stay back, think critically about what you can also do to drive your country forward, and collectively we can build a unified Africa.
Wow, that's very deep. And yes, the middle frame that we also see as part of the background is empowerment, but that has our logo and also more like a trumpet-like symbol in there, and the round circle in which the caricature or the main thing is talks about how we can, or the global reach of this podcast, that we don't only want to brighten our corner, but then we want to have that global reach, that the whole world get to see and also feel the impact of this podcast, and even our personal selves as we go forward. And together we can empower your voice. In fact, this particular podcast is going to be aired every Thursday. And yes, our social media channels on IG, on Facebook, on YouTube as well. That is where we are going to premiere it. And yes, follow us on EYV Podcast on IG, EYV Podcast on Facebook, EYV Podcast on YouTube, and yes, and even on all digital platforms. Yeah, so for me, Joe, I'm super excited that at long last we finally launched this EYB podcast. I don't know about you, like
So,
how do you
like
feel?
somebody said, Ejebu, Ejebu, Ejebu.
Yeah.
If I want to translate that into English, father is coming, father is coming, father is coming. And look, this is going to be an exciting journey. You know, we're going to have various segments on this podcast, like you said.
Yeah.
We're going to have interviews. We're going to have one-on-one discussions. We're going to have panel discussion. And so there's a lot on the table for us to present. And just like you, we also want to help contribute to the growth and development of Africa.
Sure.
So we urge everybody out there to join us, follow us on our various platforms, and monitor our podcast so that you can always be part of this exciting journey.
Wow. Yes. So that is all that we got for you guys. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube page. Please subscribe to our YouTube page, EYV Podcast on YouTube. Thank you. Bye bye.